It's time for overtime.
Ready for this?
In the world of sports, it's all about the playmakers in today's headlines, from locals to the pros, with interviews from local standouts and sports all-stars across the country that will have you talking.
Now to Giannis. Giannis with 50 and 2 of his last 3 now. Pulls up. 15-footer. Yes, sir!
Hear from coaches to players, sports analysts, and broadcasters who are a part of the action every day. Overtime, now with Bert Ramin on ESPN 102.3 AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
Right back with you to lead it off with hour number 2. In case you missed it moments ago, tomorrow is your first opportunity of the season to win some Minnesota Twins tickets on Overtime. I got tickets to give away, but you gotta earn them. Identity Crisis tomorrow, Friday Parlay on Friday, and of course the High Noon Showdown also on the Friday edition of Overtime. We're going to have Minnesota Twins tickets to give away throughout the Twins season in 2024 and through the spring and the summer. Hopefully this winter stuff is out of our purview before long. But regardless, Minnesota Twins tickets to give away beginning tomorrow with the Identity Crisis. You want to win and go to opening weekend at Target Field. The number to dial tomorrow for the Identity Crisis, 605-362-3776. Still to come on the show today. We'll get you your headlines and highlights here shortly. The Shohei presser yesterday. The reaction to that. Baseball injuries galore. It's Tuesday. Opening day is Thursday for every Major League Baseball team. Of course, except for the Padres and the Dodgers, because they got a couple games in overseas. But it's opening day on Thursday across the board. There are so many injuries to get to today. We'll try to get to all those in about 20 minutes, including guys going on the injured list for 60 days, 15 days, some people that are questionable. We'll get you filled in on all of that, and also wax poetic, if you will, a little bit about this opening day schedule. What are the must-see games? What are the bargain games to see? Because one contest you can get into for opening day for $9. $9 to go to a Major League Baseball game. We'll tell you where that is, how much it costs to get in down in Kansas City, and the most expensive and hottest ticket of opening day on Thursday. Carla Metts-Gebhart, who used to call this area home, now down in Charlotte, North Carolina, formerly with Midco. She's now with Charlotte Sports Live. She'll swing by the show in about a half hour to talk about the Carolina Panthers, their offseason priorities, what defines success for Bryce Young, and we're going to talk a little bit about this newfound impatience, more so than usual, that the NFL has in evaluation of quarterbacks. We saw it with Kenny Pickett. We saw it with Sam Howell. Teams are ready to unplug and say, hey, we like you, you're a nice guy, but we're going to go in a different direction. They do that pretty darn quick. How quickly could that happen in Carolina if we see something like we saw last year with Bryce Young down in Charlotte? We'll pick her brain about that and also talk about NASCAR. She covers NASCAR down there in the heart of NASCAR country. NASCAR Hall of Fame is in Charlotte, North Carolina. We'll talk about the young season, who's standing out, who's flying under the radar, driving under the radar. We'll talk NASCAR, Carolina Panthers, and everything in between with Carla Metts-Gebhart here in about a half hour on Overtime. And, of course, we finish up the show today with the latest in the good, the bad, and the ugly. NHL highlights from yesterday. Vegas over St. Louis 2-1 in overtime. Vegas moves to 39-25-7. And the Kings win in Vancouver over the Canucks 3-2. Tonight in the NHL, Bruins at Panthers, Red Wings at Capitals at 6 o'clock, Oilers at Jets at 7, Flames visit the Blackhawks at 7:30, and the Avalanche are at home to Montreal at 8 o'clock. All 5 of those games tonight can be streamed on ESPN+. Western Conference standings for you Minnesota Wild fans, holding out hope that there's still a chance. There is still a chance for now. Western Conference standings, Central Division, Colorado, Dallas, Winnipeg. In the top 3 pole positions there, Vancouver, Edmonton, and the Kings in the Pacific side. And the wild card still kind of up for grabs. Nashville has 88 points. Vegas has 85, followed by St. Louis with 80, and Minnesota with 77. Still in contention, but by all means pretty much out of it. Calgary and Seattle have 71 and 69 points respectively. Minnesota 77 points. They're 8 points back from Vegas, that final wild card spot. They need to be pretty much perfect the rest of the way, have Vegas stumble, and have St. Louis not play too good either. They trail the Blues by 3 points at present right now in the Western Conference standings. NBA last night was a night of upsets, and it started down in Atlanta where Boston got everything they could handle from the Hawks.
DeJounte, head fake, 2-point jumper. It's no good. Rebound, Clint Capella. Clint gets it back out to DeAndre Hunter. A three is good, and the Hawks take a 4-point lead. And it's almost good night time to those Boston Celtics.
It was good night time for Boston on the road. They lose game number 15 on the season. Their record 57-15. Final score Atlanta 120, Boston 118. And the second worst team record-wise in the NBA won last night. The Washington Wizards take care of business in Chicago 107-105. And the most baffling score from last night, Victor Wembanyama was out of the lineup for the Spurs. They had every reason to say, okay, let's go out there and jog around a little bit. Let's play hard. But you never know. Phoenix coming into town should have won by 20. But the Spurs won last night by 2 against the Suns. A baffling effort. And now Phoenix 42-30.
Off to Vassell, 5 to shoot. Vassell against Booker. Right wing Sohan for 3 with sprinkles on it. The Spurs take the lead, 104-102. 26 for Jeremy Sohan.
He was the star of the night in the absence of Wembanyama. Big win for San Antonio, 104-102. Other finals, 128-103 win for Denver over Memphis. Dallas wins in Utah, 115-105. And Indiana, dominant win out in L.A. against the Clippers.
Shepherd to the other end and recovering nicely. Harden. He prevents the shot. Out to Walker, who gives it to Siakam, and Siakam glides down the middle of the lane. And I'm exaggerating only slightly when I say his ankles were parallel with the rim.
Siakam, 31 points in the win, 133-116 the final. Indiana with the win, 41-32 on the season. Tonight in the NBA, you got 4 games. Warriors at Heat, 6:30. Lakers at Bucks, same time on TNT. Thunder at Pelicans, 7 o'clock. Mavericks at the Kings, 9 o'clock on TNT. Men's basketball, nothing to recap, but the Sweet 16 begins on Thursday. Clemson and Arizona, 6 o'clock. San Diego State, UConn, 6:30. Alabama, UNC, 8:30. And Iowa State fans will have to stay up late, maybe consider taking Friday off. 9 o'clock is the jump time, probably later than that on TBS as Iowa State locks horns with the Illinois Fighting Illini. Friday matchup from the men's tournament, NC State and Marquette, 6 o'clock. Gonzaga, Purdue, 6:30. Duke and Houston, 8:30. Creighton and Tennessee, 9 o'clock the start time. Women's basketball, we got the Sweet 16 set up last night. Iowa, despite being tied at 52 late, able to come back and get the win, 64-54. Dominant win on paper, but really close down towards the stretch of the game. 64-54 the final. Caitlin Clark, 32 points in the win. Here's what she had to say post-game about her final game in Iowa City.
I think at the beginning of the game during the national anthem, that's just something I've tried to do all year long, is like soak in our crowds and look around and enjoy it and kind of take a deep breath. And, you know, you look around, it's like standing room only. Like the place is so hot because there's so many people in there and there's no air conditioning. And I just look around and that's when I try to soak it in the most. And then obviously the game starts and you're not really too worried about it. And then at the end of the game, you know, I would have never left the court if I wasn't forced to get off. But I think those are the 2 moments that, you know, I soaked it in the most.
32 points for Caitlin Clark in the win, 64-54 over West Virginia. Other finals, Kansas lost to USC last night, 73-55. Notre Dame over Ole Miss, 71-56. Creighton played really darn great last night. I hate to see them pack it up and call it a season, but they lost to UCLA in the end, despite trailing by 8 at the half. UCLA picks up the win, 67-63. And Indiana over Oklahoma, 75-68. Some highlights from last night's games. Sweet 16 matchups begins on Friday for the women. Oregon State and Notre Dame get us going at 1:30 on ESPN on Friday. Indiana and South Carolina, 4 o'clock. NC State, Stanford, 6:30. Gonzaga, Texas, 9 o'clock. And on Saturday for the women's tournament, LSU and UCLA, must-see TV, 12 o'clock, noon on Saturday on ABC. 2:30 on ABC, Iowa and Colorado. 4 o'clock, Baylor and USC. Duke and UConn takes us home for the weekend into the Elite Eight. Duke and UConn, 7 o'clock Saturday night on ESPN. Next up for USD, they're in action tonight. Second round of the WNIT, 7 o'clock from Vermilion. They play host to Northern Arizona. Again, more info there at GoYotes.com. NFL news to get to. First things first, J.J. McCarthy's name has been hot. So hot, in fact, that he might end up being a top 5 pick in April's NFL draft. Here's Adam Schefter on J.J. McCarthy and his rising stock.
I think top 5 is realistic right now. That's what I would say right now. And let's see how high it does go. But top 5 sounds like it's realistic, increasingly realistic. Whether or not that fully happens, let's see how the next month plays out.
All sorts of intrigue in the top 5 of the NFL draft this season. You got the Chicago Bears at 1. That has lost a little bit of intriguing steam as it feels like they're a lock to take Caleb Williams. At 2, it's D.C. They're reportedly open for business-ish, but leaning a quarterback there. At 3, of course, you got the New England Patriots. They're also, quote-unquote, open for business, but could also take a quarterback. At 4, though, the Arizona Cardinals should trade down, right? Mike Tannenbaum has this to say about the Cardinals at number 4, what they should do, and what they should do with their quarterback, Kyler Murray.
J.J. McCarthy, quarterback, University of Michigan, to the Arizona Cardinals. And I have the Cardinals then trading Kyler Murray and a third-round pick to Minnesota for the 11th pick overall. J.J. McCarthy is 6 years younger than Kyler Murray. He's more durable. Kyler Murray hasn't played a full season, 4 seasons. And most importantly, guys, he's $27 million per year cheaper. So to me, it's an easy decision. Nothing against Kyler Murray. I think he's still a good quarterback. But if I could have a younger, more durable, and $27 million to improve my team, that's what I'm doing if I'm the Cardinals.
Certainly makes a ton of sense for Mike Tannenbaum there, except for the whole why would Minnesota do that conversation, because everything he outlined there is a plus for Arizona. He's younger. He's cheaper. He could be better. Why would the Minnesota Vikings sign up for somebody who's older, who's more expensive, who could be worse and had to put a contract playbook studying clause into his contract? I don't see that happening. I certainly would not be completely blown away if Arizona found a way to get some competition in there for Kyler Murray, but they're married to him just like the Browns are married to Deshaun Watson right now. Into your Reliabank headlines of the day, the accolades keep pouring in for South Dakota State as the South Dakota State softball team had Mia Jarecki and Tori Kanishi chosen as the Summit League Peak Performer and Pitcher of the Week by the conference as of yesterday. Jarecki earned her first career Summit League weekly honor. She was 4 for 4 at the plate in Game 1 over the weekend and a pair of wins over the Yotes. Had a home run, 2 RBIs, 3 runs scored, and 3 stolen bases in the doubleheader. She was 6 of 7, 2 RBIs, 6 runs scored, 5 stolen bases, and a homer. Safe to say a big week for Mia Jarecki, and more of the same in a good way for Tori Kanishi. It is her 15th honor by the Summit League as the Pitcher of the Week. Great stuff there for South Dakota State softball. We'll be looking to check in again with that program very soon. Now, continuing with your Reliabank headlines of the day, South Dakota State right-handed pitcher Nick McKay, was honored for the second Monday in a row as the Summit League Peak Pitcher of the Week for the conference. In his March 22nd outing against St. Thomas, the Carlisle, Iowa native pitched 8 shutout innings, also struck out 8 batters while allowing 3 hits, 1 walk, and 1 hit batter. 2-0 on the season. McKay lowered his ERA to 2.28 over 5 starts this year, has struck out 38 batters over 27 innings of work, and has allowed a .206 batting average to his opposition. South Dakota State Jackrabbit baseball 11-12 overall on the season. South Dakota women's basketball fans will be enthused to know their team's still playing in the WNIT. They play host to Northern Arizona tonight in the second round of the WNIT. Tip-off time, 7 o'clock. It's available on the Summit League Network via the Midco Sports Plus app. You can also listen to Jerry Palesci on the call locally, KVHT 106.3 in Yankton or Vermilion. or on that free Varsity Network app. South Dakota 22-12, coming off of a win over UC Riverside 72-57, and they play host to the Northern Arizona Lumberjacks. 25-9 is their record. They were second in their conference of the Big Sky this year, and they received a bye in the first round as they head on the road to Vermilion for the second round. Tip-off time tonight, 7 o'clock. From the Sanford Coyote Sports Center. Winner of tonight's game will advance to play Wyoming in the WNIT Super 16 with the date and site to be determined. Other headlines of the day, tickets are now on sale for the 9th annual Faith in Business Conference hosted by the Catholic Men's Business Fraternity. The conference set for Thursday, August 15th, aims to bring together CEOs, business owners, managers, community leaders, and individuals that seek to integrate their faith into the workplace. This conference this year will feature Coach Stig as the keynote speaker. Better known, of course, as Coach Stig, retired as the winningest coach in South Dakota State University football history after winning the 2022 FCS national title. And again, that tickets are on sale for the 9th annual Faith in Business Conference. More information there, faithinbusinessconference.com, or you can find out more at cmbfsf.org. Lastly, here as we round out your Reliabank headlines of the day, a lot of news trickling out from the National Football League. We talked about the teams that might end up taking a quarterback very high in the NFL draft, teams that might have their picks for sale. The New England Patriots are certainly one of those teams. Patriots owner Robert Kraft isn't going to be making any of the picks in this year's draft, but he's watched the same games everyone else has over the last few years and knows that there's one spot on his team that needs to be addressed sooner than later. According to Pro Football Talk at NBCSports.com, Kraft said, "I'll let the team make the decision with what they think is best. One way or another, I'd like to see us get a top-rate young quarterback." Of course, New England had a top-rate young quarterback for quite some time with Tom Brady, and then he turned into a top-rate middle-aged quarterback, top-rate old quarterback, top-rate elderly quarterback, and then he went and won a 7th and final Super Bowl for his career down in Tampa. Since that time, the New England Patriots have been starving for consistent to good to average quarterback play. If they can get somebody in there, veteran or otherwise, they got Jacoby Brissett. He's average. They need somebody in there for the future of the franchise. We'll wait and see what they get. But if New England could find a way to trade down, maybe with Minnesota, and still get a quarterback at 11 and still have another first-round pick at number 23 and probably get something else in conjunction with that, seems like a pretty sweet gig there for the New England Patriots. Trade down, get a Q, get an additional player, and more picks. That might be the best case scenario for New England, but again, really hard to determine where every team in the top 5 is going to go, with exception of the Chicago Bears. It feels like that's trending pretty darn close to certainty with Caleb Williams. Now on to a retirement in the National Football League. Former New England Patriots and Buffalo Bills running back Damian Harris has announced his retirement in an Instagram post as of last night. Harris wrote a 3-slide statement, including, "Today, I'm grateful I've found the strength to walk away from the game I love so much." Pretty darn early for Harris, but he ended last year by being stretchered off with an ambulance with neck and concussion injuries. The 27-year-old played the first 4 seasons of his career with the Patriots prior to signing with the Bills in free agency, retiring at the age of 27. Kudos to Harris for knowing when to walk away. Lastly, here on the Minnesota Vikings, we talked to you about Sam Darnold. We talked about the quarterback situation in hour number 1. Here's the latest from the Wilf family and a quote to boot. The Vikings' looming quarterback transition, an apparent long-range plan, has excited fans and added an entertaining level of mystery to their football operation. Speaking for the first time since the Vikings finished last season with a 7-10 record, their fewest wins since 2013, owner and president Mark Wilf made clear that his family still thinks the team should build for the future while winning in the present. He acknowledged that injuries played a role in last season's record, but said that his family is, quote, not going to rest on that. Mark Wilf saying, "We want to win every single game and every step along the way. So how that falls, that will happen on the field. We'll see. It's important our fans know that that's always our commitment, and that's how we approach it. At the same time, we believe the way we're building, this is going to be sustained success We, like our fans, are not pleased with the record last year. We want to be competing for the playoffs, championships, division titles, and Super Bowl championships, all of the above. Pretty mainstream statement from the Wilf family, but definitely good to hear from Mark Wilf in regards to the plans. And I got to say, I might not be on board with the overall strategy that Minnesota's employing because I think that Minnesota is a little bit away from being a plug-and-play, dynamic rookie Super Bowl team. I'm not saying they're years and years away, but it's interesting the way that they've built the roster this offseason. Very, very active in free agency, and they've got some pieces already on the roster. Left tackle, right tackle. They've got receivers galore. They got a great tight end. They got a good defense. I think Minnesota could compete right away with a rookie quarterback. Do I think they're Super Bowl caliber, and do I agree with every move this offseason? No, I don't. But again, Minnesota Vikings definitely maintaining their competition competitiveness at this stage of what is definitely a retool and a rebuild around the game's most important position. When we come back, we'll talk some baseball immediately next. Shohei Ohtani, presser reaction, and more on Overtime.
The best sporting matchups and coverage. We are ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
Right back with you on this Tuesday edition of Overtime. Minnesota Twins baseball gets going this week. Thursday opening day, 2:30 is the broadcast start time for the opener for the Minnesota Twins, facing off with the Kansas City Royals. Thursday, 2:30 start right here. Listen to Twins baseball year-round, all season long. ESPN 102.3, AM 1000, KSOO, your home for the Minnesota Twins. Now we'll get to the Ohtani news here in just a moment, breaking down yesterday's press conference. First time Ohtani has broken the silence with the media in regards to the alleged activity with his interpreter, longtime friend. But we're going to dive into injuries first here for Major League Baseball. Arizona Diamondbacks closer Paul Sewald will start the season on the injured list because of a strained left oblique. Manager Torey Lovullo said that the strain was a grade 2, meaning that the right-hander could miss several weeks of the season. The 33-year-old reliever is in his second season with the team after coming to the franchise in a deadline deal with the Mariners last summer. Milwaukee Brewers outfielder Garrett Mitchell has a fracture in his left hand that is now expected to miss the start of the season. Brewers' new manager Pat Murphy told reporters about the injury on Monday and said that Mitchell was seeing a specialist. The 25-year-old batted .246 with a .315 on-base percentage, had 3 homers and 7 RBI in 19 games last season. He will miss some time to start the year. As will New York Yankees leadoff hitter DJ LeMahieu. He'll start the season on the injured list because of a bruised right foot, the latest injury setback for the former batting champ. The third baseman has been sidelined since fouling a ball off his foot back in mid-March, March 16th, and is expected to miss at least the 7-game trip that starts Thursday at Houston for the Yankees. General Manager Brian Cashman saying he's banged it up pretty good. It's a little bit slow go on the recovery side. The 35-year-old was slowed the past 2 seasons by an injured right toe, and now he's got a bruised right foot. Bad start to the season on the injury front for the New York Yankees. Other news for the Pinstripes, New York Yankees outfielder Oscar Gonzalez suffered a right orbital fracture on Monday night. The team announced Gonzalez was taken to the hospital after fouling a ball off of his face, that orbital bone right around your eye, during an exhibition game in Mexico against the Diablos Rojos. During that game, the Yankees said Gonzalez was treated at the ballpark for a right eye contusion by a team physician, and the head physician assigned to the 2-game series. The club confirmed the diagnosis of the broken orbital fracture on Monday night. He'll miss some time this year as well. That is the latest news on the injury front for Major League Baseball. And now, to clarify and to dive into Shohei Ohtani's comments. He intermittently read off notes for close to 12 minutes from a packed Los Angeles Dodgers interview room yesterday afternoon, and he had this to say. Said he has never gambled on sports and didn't instruct his former interpreter, Ippei Mitsuhara, to wire money from his account to pay a bookmaker. Mitsuhara, quote, has been stealing money from us and has told lies. Ohtani said while speaking through his new interpreter, Will Ireton, the Dodgers manager of performance operations. On a personal note, Ohtani said, I'm very sad and shocked that someone who I've trusted has done this. Ohtani spoke to more than 70 media members yesterday, went on to say, I never bet on baseball or any other sports or never have asked somebody to do that on my behalf. I've never went through a bookmaker to bet on sports. Up until a couple days ago, I didn't know that this was happening. Mitsuhara, who came with Ohtani to the United States more than 6 years ago and became one of his closest friends, was let go by the Dodgers on Wednesday in the wake of media inquiries surrounding at least $4.5 million made in wire transfers sent from Ohtani's bank account to a Southern California bookmaking operation that is currently under federal investigation. Again, that is the latest there. Commentary out from Shohei Ohtani. And again, to reframe and refocus, Ohtani has not been accused of gambling at any point, and none of the bets were believed to have been made on baseball, a circumstance that could lead to a permanent ban from the sport. Just wanted to make that clear. The investigation has not linked Ohtani into betting activity of any kind at this time. Surely we'll let it play out with Shohei Ohtani and his interpreter moving forward. Now for opening day. Coming up on Thursday, we got a slew of big matchups. Milwaukee visiting the Mets. Pretty juicy one to start out. We also got Philly and Atlanta from Philadelphia. Couple AL Central matchups. Detroit at Chicago. Minnesota at Kansas City. Other big name matchups across the board. St. Louis out in L.A. against the Dodgers. You got the Cubs opening up against the defending champion Rangers. You can watch that Thursday night on ESPN at 6:35. It's Justin Steele for the Cubbies, Nathan Eovaldi for the Rangers. When it comes to getting in cheap this year, there's a couple places that come to mind. There's two ballparks that you can get in for less than the price of a lunch these days. $13 is the cost to get in. Predictably, a cheap venue, a place that's dilapidated and has had its issues. Oakland playing host to Cleveland, 9:07 p.m. on Thursday night. You can get in for $13 as of this morning. Elsewhere, though, even cheaper than that, $9 to see the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Miami there, the Marlins, 3:10, the start time in the afternoon. $9 is the cost there. Most expensive get-in price of the week and of the opening day, couple over $100 a piece. And those games, Atlanta at Philly, $120 to get in the door, and Washington at Cincinnati, very expensive as well, $101 as of this morning to get into the opening day matchup between the Reds and Washington from Cincinnati. 3:10 the start time there. That's opening day's preview. $9, $13 for Major League Baseball. You can count me in. We'll be talking NASCAR, Carolina Panthers, everything in between. Carla Metts-Gebhart used to call this area home for a while. She's down in Charlotte now. We'll check in with her coming up next on this Tuesday edition of Overtime.
Streaming live app. This is Overtime with Bert Rameen on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO. Sioux Falls sports leader.
Right back with you on this Tuesday edition of Overtime. We're joined now on the ESPN hotline by somebody that used to call this area home, working for Midco Sports for a time, Carla Metts-Gebhart. Now down in Charlotte, North Carolina, my old stomping grounds, working with Charlotte Sports Live, covering the Panthers, the ACC, the sport of NASCAR, which calls home there. They got the NASCAR Hall of Fame in downtown Charlotte. Carla Metts-Gebhart joins us now on the ESPN hotline. Carla, it's great to hear from you. How you been?
I've been doing well, yeah, and excited to join and talk to everybody back in Sioux Falls. Sioux Falls always holds a special place in my heart. But, yeah, it's been certainly a fun week here in North Carolina with all the sports that are happening this week with March Madness going on. A lot happening over the month of March.
I have to imagine that a lot of brackets down there in North and South Carolina are pretty darn good, because if you have kids picking for parents, or you have parents that are homers and they wanted to go ahead and put Duke and UNC and Clemson and NC State on some runs, Those represent a quarter of the teams remaining. Duke, UNC, Clemson, NC State, all into the Sweet 16. Pretty fun time. What is the overall excitement, panic level as you gauge that market of Charlotte that is very much a melting pot of love and hatred for those teams?
Yeah, a lot of blue bloods in the area, which comes with, like you said, a lot of love and a lot of hate. But I think a lot of people are really excited. I tell you what, NC State fans are about as happy as any fan base in Carolina right now, just to kind of see what the Wolfpack has been able to do the last couple of seasons. It seems like they've had really good teams, but they've kind of been on the edge and haven't really been able, to either get in the tournament or make it very far, even though they've had a good team. So NC State, very happy to be where they're at in the Sweet 16. And then you got Duke and UNC. I mean, the biggest thing about this is that, really all of these teams, Clemson included, they've got really tough tests the next game on Thursday and on Friday. And these are really good programs, but a lot of them, even though they're the blue bloods, they're kind of being looked at as the underdog going into this week.
Carla, I want you to be honest with us, because I don't think there's anyone in Charlotte, North Carolina listening to us. When you are picking an allegiance with the big groups there, you can say Wake Forest. I know you're not going to pick my App State Mountaineers because you're a Georgia Southern grad. Where is your allegiance right now? I know you cover all of them, but do you find yourself a little partial to the Wolfpack or the Tar Heels, or don't say Duke?
Yeah, I'm not going to say Duke this year, at least. And yeah, App State, they hold a separate place in my heart, even though I still have to cover them after graduating from Georgia Southern. But you know what? I think I'm going to lean toward that NC State pick just because they're the most Cinderella team, I feel like, of these Carolina schools, right? And then if I have to pick, a big monster in the tournament, it's probably going to be North Carolina just because this is such a senior-ridden team, and they've got so much experience. I know that it didn't make the tournament last season, but to see them kind of come back under Hubert Davis and be able to build what they have this season, they've got to get a little bit more help outside of Baycock and R.J. Davis in this tournament, I think, to make it past Bama. But I like their chances, and I like them to take it a little bit further in the tournament.
Carla Metts-Gebhart, formerly with Midco, now with Charlotte Sports Live, is our guest on the ESPN Hotline. Tuesday edition of Overtime, ESPN 102.3 AM 1000 KSOO. I want to paint a picture for you this week. As of yesterday, we were getting some sleet, we were getting some rain, we were getting some snow. So far today, I have slipped on ice outside 2 different times. I know that's not something you miss about South Dakota and Sioux Falls. I did not fall. I just slipped. I did not fall. I'm not that old just yet to break a hip, but what do you miss about South Dakota? And I'm going to throw one out there that people might not think of before you answer the question, what you miss most. I bet you miss not having pollen, because pollen there is like a snow season in itself. When I moved to Raleigh in high school, it was remarkable. We were there in April, May, and I swear every single car around in a parking lot had a thin glaze of green on it. If you've never seen it, it's a sight to behold. You can choose pollen if you like to, but what do you miss most about South Dakota?
Yeah, I will address it. The pollen season is alive and well in Carolina right now. You can take your car through the car wash in the afternoon, and by the next morning, it's yellow again. So certainly don't really love that part of Carolina, but I don't miss the ice. You know what? I will say I only lived there for about 4 years, and so in that time, I grew up in Georgia, right, where, I saw snow like twice in my life before. So to live there, I kind of felt like I lived in a snow globe for most of the year. So it was a little bit of a novelty. I don't think I lived there long enough to be, overly tired of it, but certainly don't miss the wind. The wind is something I don't miss in South Dakota. There were several times I had to catch my car door because it would open so fast. I'm like, I'm going to rip the car door off of my car just from the weather. But also, things I do miss. I just miss the area of Sioux Falls and the community there. I do miss, Midco Sports. That was one of the best jobs that I ever had. And all of the guys that I worked with, I've been very fortunate in my career to work with a lot of great men. Which I know a lot of men cannot necessarily, or a lot of women, cannot necessarily say that in sports, but working there at Midco, it was just such a great time. All of those guys are so good, so much fun to work with. And so, yeah, certainly miss them. And I still keep up with all of them and their families. And so it's always good to see what they're doing at Midco.
Top tier stuff always from Midco. Love those guys as well. Let's talk a little bit about the Carolina Panthers. It was not fun last year to cover that team, I would imagine, just in terms of what went on. I want to ask you, Bryce Young, he's coming into year number 2. Last year was a disaster. Wasn't just him, the coach, the owner. Everything went wrong for the Carolina Panthers. What do you think needs to happen for Bryce Young this year, whether it's statistics, whether it's wins, whether it's confidence? What needs to happen for Bryce Young to set himself up for a strong year number 3 in Charlotte?
Yeah, I mean, I think, for this year for him, it's all about not necessarily having large expectations. We actually got to hear from General Manager Dan Morgan, who was an assistant general manager just last season. So he kind of, helped get Bryce here to Carolina, trading up and moving to that first overall pick in the draft. But he said yesterday in a presser, listen, we want Bryce Young to come in here and just be himself, not have that high expectation. And they're hoping that by elevating really a lot of this roster, because, listen, you don't get to 2-15 by yourself, and that was certainly not the case for Bryce last season. He got sacked 62 times or more just last year. So the offensive line, they brought in over free agency 2 humongous guards. Hopefully keep him upright this season. They're paying those guys a lot of money too. And so that will be good to see. They brought in a wide receiver, Deontay Johnson, over free agency. And so that's going to give him an extra weapon. We think, as they go into the draft, they're going to be looking maybe for some more depth on the offensive line, but certainly some more weapons, whether that's at wide receiver, which a lot of people think that they're going to, use that 33rd overall pick to go after a wide receiver. If they can get this guy some protection and they can get him some weapons, I think we are going to see him slowly increase his confidence through his play. And you've also got a new head coach here in Dave Canales, who's worked with guys like Russell Wilson. He's worked with Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield as well, and he's helped elevate those quarterbacks even later in their career. So he's almost catching Bryce Young at a great time where he hasn't been able to develop a lot of habits, and they're going to be working a lot with him on his footwork. And I just think the new staff, the new feeling in Carolina is that they're going to be able to do everything that they can to help him increase his level of play, which is also going to increase his confidence. And I think that's the best way to approach this season. I don't necessarily know if we can really be hopeful for playoffs or anything crazy like that. But you got, more than 2 wins if you're going to get closer to that 500 level and then continue to build this roster for the future. That's the plan, at least right now.
Carolina Panthers, a lot of objectives next year, but one of them is just find out who Bryce Young is, protect the guy, give him an opportunity to throw the football down the field. We'll see how it shakes out for the Panthers. NASCAR season, about a month and a half underway. What have been some highlights so far? Obviously, a couple wild finishes this year. What have been some peak and valley highlights so far in the NASCAR season for you?
Listen, I think through, a handful of races, you can't ask for a better season start for NASCAR. I mean, over the off season, I don't know if you were able to watch the Netflix special of NASCAR and the playoffs. And so that kind of really increased this, big build for the season. And then we open up with the Daytona 500. Yes, it was rain delayed, but still a really great race. We saw a close finish. In Atlanta, that was really exciting and really kind of unexpected. We've seen a lot of great finishes so far this season. And so I don't hesitate to say this, but after William Byron just, notched his second win and we're so early in the season, he was a part of the championship 4 in the playoffs last year and kind of got disappointed when they went to Phoenix for that championship race. But I think this is going to be his year. I think in a couple weeks, in a couple of months, we're going to be like, man, we're tired of hearing William Byron win this season. I just really feel like this is his year for Hendrick Motorsports to do something special. Hendrick Motorsports is kind of dominating a lot of the headlines this season. You've got Kyle Larson running the double in May. You've got Alex Bowman's had a really great run the last couple of races. And then Chase Elliott's kind of been maybe the letdown because you just haven't, you've seen him run well, but just not that resurgence that a lot of fans were hoping after he had such a dismal season last year. But still a lot of great storylines and a lot of great drivers to follow this season.
NASCAR race coming up Sunday, 6 o'clock, night race at Richmond. And again, to echo your point, this isn't your dad's NASCAR where Jeff Gordon won 13 races or Jimmy Johnson was so dominant for so long. There's so many different guys that are at the top of their game, and it gets anyone's race every single weekend. It's a great time to be a NASCAR fan. Carla, before we let you go, I wanted to pick your brain on a couple topics about the South and about some differences between where you're at now and where you called home for 3-4 years up here in South Dakota. Bojangles or Chick-fil-A? Because I stand firmly on the Bojangles side of thing. I know both are from the South, and not a whole lot of people here in South Dakota know what Bojangles is or know what I'm talking about. French fries and fried chicken for breakfast. Really great stuff. I love it. Are you Bojangles or Chick-fil-A?
I would expect you to pick Bojangles if you're from the Carolina area. I'm originally from Georgia, so that's where, the Atlanta area where Chick-fil-A originated.
Yep.
So I got to say, I'll probably pick Chick-fil-A.
Okay.
I also have a 5 and 3-year-old who are big Chick-fil-A advocates. But listen, Bojangles sponsors about everything there is to sponsor here in the Carolinas. They've got great chicken. And you know what? I'm from the South. Like, fried chicken is always, I'm never going to turn it down, really, no matter where it's from.
Absolutely true. Bojangles is the hangover food special for college kids across the Carolinas. Lastly here, I wanted to talk to you about, you got the Southern roots. You're from Georgia. You live in Charlotte now. My vote is pimento cheese, but what Southern food do you think South Dakotans would love the most that doesn't get up here to the frigid tundra too often? Is it pimento cheese? Is it something else?
Yeah, that's a really good pick. Actually, one time during the Masters, I made pimento cheese and egg salad for all of the guys at Midco Sports and brought in sweet tea because I just felt like they had to get the true Masters experience. Pimento cheese is really great. And not only is it great just like in a sandwich by itself, but like a lot of people in the South, they put them on cheeseburgers, like just a scoop of pimento cheese on cheeseburgers. They use it as a dip. I mean, it's a very versatile food type. I mean, honestly, if I had to summarize just food in the South, it's anything that could potentially be healthy, and then you throw butter and flour and grease and you fry it, and then it's, even that much better, but just maybe not as healthy, right?
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Well, Carla, it's great to talk to you. Great that we got that commonality down in Charlotte. I wish you all the best. Charlotte Sports Live. And again, on Twitter, you can find her link to the show log today. All the best. We'll do this again soon. This was a blast. Thanks so much.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. That's Carla Metts-Gebhart, who now is down in Charlotte, North Carolina with Charlotte Sports Live. Spent some time here in the Sioux Falls area with Midco Sports. And we had the debate there, Bojangles and Chick-fil-A. And it doesn't surprise me. Georgia native rolls with Chick-fil-A. I got nothing bad to say about Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A sauce is awesome. But Bojangles just so intertwined into the Carolinas. If you've never had it, it's in some airports here and there. They're continuing to expand, but Bojangles is a must stop if you're in the South, if you're in the Southeast. I think they're kind of overall footprint for Bojangles, if you will, is kind of that Southeast Georgia, maybe down into the deep South, North Carolina, West Virginia area. If you have the opportunity to try it, would highly recommend Bojangles as well. And pimento cheese, by the way, she hit the nail on the head saying it was a burger topping. People will do that kind of similar to what we saw Culver's do in our neck of the woods with the cheese curd burger. People will do a pimento cheeseburger, pimento cheese on top, but a lot of places it's a dip with chips, a dip with crackers, or it's mixed in with pimento cheese sandwich, something else. Really great stuff. We got a lot to get to still. The good, the bad, the ugly coming up next on Overtime. Don't go anywhere. We wrap up the show next on a Tuesday.
ESPN Sioux Falls gets you back to more of Overtime with Bert Rameen on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
Right back with you, Tuesday edition of Overtime, rolling on, and we are up against it. Time to deliver the good, the bad, the ugly to round out the show.
Many days there are those who can be called a problem child. You know the ones. They have a tendency to display an ugly side. They have their whiny moments. Some display an outright bad side of themselves. And then there are those who stand out in a good way. Well, here they are. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
First things first, good news for the Pac-12, good news for Oregon State and Washington State as they finalized a settlement over financial distributions with the 10 schools that are set to depart the league. The departing schools will have a $5 million withholding during the upcoming fiscal year for a total of $50 million under the deal announced on Monday. The departing schools also will each pay a $1.5 million supplemental contribution to the conference that'll be used by the remaining schools to navigate their uncertain future. The departing members will not be entitled to any revenue generated after this year and will have no, quote, vote, direction, input, or other power within the conference's use, allocation of expenditure of the supplemental contribution. Settlement was agreed to in principle late last year, and it is official. Oregon State, Washington State are at the helm of the ship known as the Pac-12, sailing into the future, and everyone else has jumped off of said ship. 10 schools out. Oregon State, Washington State remain in it. And I think it'll be the Mountain West and the Pac-12 coming together in some form in the near future. On to the bad. We've had a slew of really bad gambling-related sports stories lately. And today we got a really bad one from the NBA. Toronto Raptors forward Jontay Porter is under investigation by the association following multiple instances of betting irregularities over the past several months, according to sources telling ESPN late yesterday. At issue are prop bets involving Porter from games on January 26th and March the 20th. Multiple sources told ESPN, an NBA spokesman told ESPN that the league is, quote, looking into it. In the game on January 26th against the Clippers, there was increased betting interest on the under for Porter props, which for the night were set at around 5.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 1.5 assists. There was also an over-under for Porter's made three-pointers, which was 1/2 of a three. That evening, Porter played just 4 minutes before leaving the game because of what the Raptors said was an aggravation of an eye injury he had suffered 4 days earlier against the Grizzlies. Porter did not score against the Clippers, but had 3 rebounds and 1 assist, and he did not attempt a three, meaning the under hit on all of the props. The next day, as part of the daily report to users on betting results, DraftKings Sportsbook stated that the under on Porter's three-pointers was the biggest money winner for bettors of any NBA player props from games that evening. That's the tip of the iceberg on that article. It's up right now, ESPN.com. Another very ugly situation. Again, not allegations yet, just an investigation into potential wrongdoing there for Toronto Raptors forward Jontay Porter. That is the latest. That is both bad and ugly, and that's enough to satisfy the good, the bad, the ugly, as we say so long today. Have a great day, Sioux Falls. We'll do it tomorrow, 11 to 1. Win some Twins tickets tomorrow with the Identity Crisis for opening weekend at Target Field. We'll talk to you at 11 tomorrow when the next edition of Overtime rolls around right here on ESPN Sioux Falls.